How's it going, YouTube? I'm back with another deck profile. Of course, it's Crossfade again. I'm coming back at you guys with another Dabi list because I feel like I want to go ahead and let's go over all of the symbols for this character. And so next, funny enough, I'm starting on Fire and not Death, not going order. But so I have a Fire Dabi list. I first want to say I am not sponsored in any way, but please go over to unfunstuff.com. My boy Bromley has been doing a lot of work, and I try and give him any support possible, as he is the one that I'm trying to get my cards through. So please go over to unfunstuff.com. Use whichever creator code you guys want to use. Again, I am not sponsored. I don't have a code, but please show Bromley some love. I would really appreciate it. At least I know he would too. And secondly, thanks if you guys are tuning back in again. I really like the feedback that I got from the first video of Dabi off of Chaos. And you guys have really made me enjoy these videos, and so I want to keep bringing them to you. With that said, let's just go ahead and get right into the list. I'm going to start off with the actions of the deck. We've only got 5 of them. 3 copies of Evil Gaze. This card, again, is just always a good card, right? It selectively destroys something. It pushes through your attacks that they want to block. So when you once per game, your really big move, you Evil Gaze it as well. And that forces them to kind of block it or take like 16 damage, and then you get to punish them for also blocking. And then I'm running 2 copies of Sugar Rush Power Up. This can snipe You're So Obvious on offense. This is just like maybe you need that last little bit of damage. You've already used your once per game, but you've got a big discard pile. You get an extra boost of damage. Or if it's going to get the kill and you somehow don't have 10 foundations, you can still use this just to remove 10 cards for the damage pump. And it's a good high block. We'll go into the attack lineup. We're running 20 attacks. We're running 4 copies of Crow and Frog Takedown. My big thing with this card is that it doesn't count towards progressive, and this helps us string out in this deck, which Chaos, of course, we're pretty easy to do. But under Fire and Death, stringing is a bit more difficult with this character, and so this is a ranged attack notably and doesn't count towards progressive. And just starting off with like a 4 high 5, right, but making your next move you know is going to be bigger is like fine. We're running 4 copies of Frigid Heatwave. It's a mainstay card, right, for range decks. Pretty crazy fire one. This fuels 3 more cards for our once per game. This you get the dream hit of this with like 3 ranged attacks, and it's a 5 high for 10, and then you get to once per game and make it a 5 high for 18 throw that also drew you 2 cards. It's just a crazy attack. Not really much more to say about it. We're running 4 copies of Ice Storm. Again, I don't think this is another card that I have to go too far into. It's a really big beatdown attack that has powerful, so you can give it powerful and throw with your once per game. Breaker 2 can't be blocked by attack cards, gives you some deadlock threat. It's a low, so it's off zone. So it's just an all-around good card, obviously. Definitely running it as a 4 of. We're running 3 copies of Nitro Ignition. This is another one of those ways to help with our card pool. So we can enhance or remove it on the second attack. So that way that we have gotten rid of one of our progressive difficulty. Also, as like maybe your second move, this is like a 5 high for 7, which is like pretty good on a 5 diff, honestly. You're not really ever triggering the response on this card, but yeah, it's just a 4 diff. You can easily put things in for this, but I just have it in for the clearing progressive. There's 3 copies of Giant Ice Wall. It's another off zone move. It's a stun too, so like if this deck doesn't have to kill you on turn 2 or turn 3, so you can get the extra momentum to give your more attack stun. So being able to stun out like 4 other things, let's say after like you've once per gamed, right? It just really puts pressure on them. And then Hellflame Javelin is a card that you could probably put in the sideboard, but I think it's fine running main. This card, you get down to 10 cards or less, you can pretty quickly. So sniping down 2 of their foundations, not being able to be hit by breakers if they decide to block this. So if this is your second move, this is a 4 high for 6. Between all the damage pump in the deck, this is like a 4 high for 8 or 9. That if they decide to block it, they can't breaker me. So the rest of my turn, I don't care about any of your Ice Storms, Naval Laser Beams, anything like that. I don't have to worry about my checks getting messed with. So I run it as a 2 of. You can put the third in the sideboard probably. You could not run them at all and play probably different stuff. There's a bunch of different moves that are coming out from set 3, like a Ignited Arrow. You could just put that in instead because that card's crazy and definitely going in this list as soon as set 3 drops. We'll go to the foundations. 4 copies of Latent Skill. It's enhanced flip, discard 2 cards, draw 2. Unless they have Night Watch in play or they've got a Todoroki character card. This gets to just cycle 2 cards. I get to put 2 foundations into my bin to fuel my once per game, and I get to draw potentially more orange to kill you with. So it's just a fine card. It's a 2 high block. This is the only 4 of in the deck because I always want to see this card. And seeing it in multiple copies of it is also very good. 3 copies of Heroic Lineage. I don't run 4 because there's a lot of speed reduction in this deck between this and like Ice Gliding and Defrosting, that I don't think you need to run 4 copies of it, especially since it has a 3 block mod. But it does also give you some extra damage, so it works out fine. But I've personally like it at 3. I'm running 3 copies of Revoletta's Masterpiece. This could probably honestly be up to 4 copies of it, just because of the discard for 1 damage, so you're fueling your discard pile. I just think that I wanted to just trying to slim it down to 60, and this is just where I kind of made one of my cuts of making this down to 3 instead. Irrefutable Force of Nature. You could probably swap this to down to 2 to 4 copies of Revel, honestly. But I think having the Seal Hate is really good. Is really, really prevalent because there's a lot of Earth and Water decks that are going to be going around that you need to deal with their foundations. But if you don't think you're going to run against them, 2 is completely fine with another in the board. As always, my sideboard is never actually here with my decks because I think those are all personal biases. So I just offer my thoughts, recommendations, but I don't actually ever give you guys my sideboards. 3 copies of Nervous Habit. This is just, our life total is a resource, and using it to get an extra 1 speed is good. It's got a decent block, and it's on turn 2, if you build 2 copies of this, they play their back alley haymakers. What are they going to do? Stun 2 you and lose 2 of their foundations? So it's just a good card. But as more foundations come out, this could easily get cut down to 2 because it's not super necessary for the deck to function, but it's just a good card. 3 copies of Forcing Surrender. This helps deal with cards leaving our card pool, our cards being stuffed into our card pool. If we ever have any combo attacks in our sideboards to deal with certain matchups, this can also flip and discard their momentum. But it's a 1 diff 2 low block, and it gets rid of some cards that they stuff in with Tongue Whips and with Sticky Balls and things like that. 3 copies of Calling for Backup. A lot of people might look at this card and think it's a little weird because you have to play this as the first enhance to draw a card. And Dabi, of course, is, a first enhance to give +3 damage. But the thing that happens a lot is when you use Calling for Backup as your second enhance, you just discard the card that you don't care about. You discard one of your foundations. So you're actually fueling your once per game with Calling for Backup and with Latent Skill in this deck. So you can do it pretty early on. If you check well and you have a Latent Skill and a Calling for Backup with a Frigid Heatwave on turn 2, you can once per game on turn 2 and potentially kill somebody really early. So that's why I run it at 3 copies, just because it's an extra fuel for Dabi, honestly. 3 copies of Ice Gliding. It's a good speed reduction foundation. It's just solid. You can use it to offensively push your moves, obviously. But it's a good foundation, obviously. So I run it at 3. And then 3 copies of Arrogant Disposition. This card you could definitely not run on the deck. It's a 1/6 too low, so it's just used for the stats. You're gonna run across a lot of punches, so the -3 speed can come up a decent amount. But obviously, if you're not playing against a punch deck, you just never play these or hold them unless you have to, on turn 1. 3 copies of Keen Observation. This is the most BS card in the deck because Fire has a severe lack of 0 difficulty foundations right now that are good for everybody because not everyone's running Stronger in Darkness. In Danger I don't think is that good of a card, so this is strictly in the deck because it's a 0 diff with a 2 high block. So with set 3 coming out, with like quick to act releasing, we're slotting in easily 3 copies of that 3 copies of that card. And you can either take these out to put in those, or you can add in more zeros. That way you can consistently build on turn 4. But this card does not trigger in this deck. It is a 0 diff blank foundation to build for on turn 1. Lastly, I have 2 copies of Defrosting. I just don't want to see 3 copies of this card in my hand, obviously. Or honestly, I don't even really want to see 2 on turn 1. So it's just a 2 of. But notably, it combos with Heroic Lineage. When you discard for -1 speed and +2 damage, since the move is now getting damage, you get to respond with your Heroic Lineage for -3 more speed. So you get to effectively -4 speed a move once per turn when they're attacking. So it just means you get to almost always block the move. 2 copies of Frozen. We're not having to blow up all of our foundations, and we're not trying to be so aggressive that I want 3 copies like I did in my Chaos list. But I think this card still pressures people because you'll still flip your foundations, you'll enhance commit with Irrefutable Force of Nature to seal something, and then blow it up to make them also commit something as well. And whether that be the thing that you just sealed, it doesn't matter because you're still making them lose a resource to block with. But it's only at a 2 of because the deck isn't as aggressively pushed as my Chaos list was. And then lastly is 1 copy of Self-Assured. I like the card. I think this card's a sweet 1 of in almost every single deck that can run it. Even if you're not drawing for the ranged in your discard pile, just being able to enhance commit and change the zone of anything to whatever you need to block is cool. But you could definitely cut it. Definitely when you're running a range package, I think it's always at least a 1x of cards. And yeah, that wraps up Dabi Under Fire. We went with a ranged package this time. Be sure to sub to the channel. I will release a death list as well. We'll do the same deck profile that I do with all the other ones, so look forward to that. If you guys did like the video, please like and then comment on like maybe your thoughts, other deck lists you guys want to possibly see or anything. I appreciate all the feedback, and I will definitely be doing more deck profiles moving forward because I actually really like talking about the decisions of putting certain cards in decks. And with that, I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much.